Now, speaking of great men, we have had something of a tradition on this weekend, or the closest weekend to Anzac Day, for the last few years. We spoke with the great Robert Eagles, stalwart of this radio station, about his experiences as a soldier. We spoke to Normie Rowe on one Anzac Day last year. We spoke to a gentleman called Simon O'Brien, who, amongst other things, is my boss, but a former serviceman as well. And in keeping with the tradition, we wanted to talk to someone who has served this country in the military, and a man that we spoke to about 6 or 8 weeks ago wearing his Seymour hat is today joining us from Canberra. Hank Kreemers, welcome back.
Thank you, Robert. That was a fairly big high bar you set me there with the names that you put to air, but yes, I'm happy to be here, mate.
And you've also got Neil here as well. Now, Hank, this is an important event for you on many things. One of the very small aspects is, because you've been on the show twice, you are now officially a friend of the show.
And happy to be that, Robert. And also with Canberra, the reason we are in Canberra is because of the weekend and the reason of the weekend. And Anzac Day, to me and a lot of other people in Australia, is just a day of reflection and also a mateship. And the people that you meet, the soldiers and the ex-diggers and the mates that you meet, that you have conversations with those people that you can't have with anybody else. And it's so good to meet up with mates. And I think part of Anzac Day is just that. And there's also the courage, resilience and legacy parts of Anzac Day, Bob.
Hank, it's Robert here. I just wanted to ask you about your feelings, and you've sort of half answered it. To me, on the outside, Anzac Day continues to change a bit how it's viewed by the community outside of the actual service people. Are you always just focused on the way you view it with you and your friends, or do you take a little bit of a notice about how the public in general view this day of commemoration?
I actually take a lot of notice of how the public see the Anzac Day, Robert, because with all the Anzac Day dawn services and the marches that I've been involved in over I guess the last, since we came home, the crowds have increased dramatically, especially for dawn services. Just to highlight the fact up here in Canberra for the dawn service, that it was just a sea of people. I'm not talking hundreds, I'm talking thousands of people at the War Memorial for the dawn service. And even the little country towns like Seymour and a little bigger country town like Geelong, it's noticeable the amount of people, the public, the general public, that is now attending Anzac Day services.
Yeah, and it's for lots of different reasons. I know in my personal case, I'd only been to a few across the journey, but after the passing of my partner's father, who was very active in a Lancaster bomber in the Second World War, that the emotion became quite high, and we have gone to a service, with the exception of yesterday, every year since then, and it has become quite emotional, and we make a commitment to go somewhere different every year, because there's so many different ways to commemorate the day. And I love the way the little country towns, there might only be 50 or 60 people attend the service, but it's still really quite emotional, particularly for those in that town that have been service representatives.
My word, when you go to the little country towns, I'll just mention Clunes, the country town where I was brought up, and the memorial there at Clunes and the service for a town that size is just fantastic. To have the band and the march and the dawn service and the general march service, and the recognition, especially by the public, it is now very, very enheartening and also very emotional for diggers as well.
Yeah, when I was talking to you during the week, Hank, organising this conversation, I think I mentioned it to you, I fall into a group of people who nobody in my family at any stage has ever served in the military. It's just the way that the generations have landed in between the significant conflicts. And so when I was growing up, I remember going off to school, primary school, wearing my cub uniform. I'm not exactly sure why wearing a cub uniform was seen to be an important thing, but I guess it was coming off the back of the Vietnam conflict, which, as you and I talked about the other day, didn't resonate all that well with the Australian public when you guys came back. Different to World War One and World War Two, which was what your granddad did. I suspect that over the years, and we're talking sort of 50 plus years now, things have changed. The acknowledgement of the sacrifice made in Vietnam and other conflicts since then has made it a bit more real for people in our community.
It has, especially the Vietnam conflict and ensuing conflicts. The one that's been there the longest with Afghanistan and areas like that. It's been in the public domain for a long time now, and I think just to touch on, I ran into a guy that I've never met before in my life at breakfast yesterday morning, and he just could not thank me enough and thank us blokes enough for doing what we've done, and that is the consensus of the public now, and it's really, really good to see. And like Anzac Day will never ever be an end to Anzac Day in our beautiful country.
And I think the other thing that we reflected on, and folks, if you want, at the end of this, if you want to hear more from Hank, can I recommend you listen to the Regional 250 on Monday morning, because Hank is my guest. It comes out at 10 o'clock in your favourite podcast store. But I think the thing that I still can't quite get my head around, imagine you've got an 18-year-old son or daughter right now, and you're sitting down and watching the television, and they draw a date of birth out of a bucket, and no questions asked, that means you are going in to do national service. So it wasn't something you grew up saying, I'll tell you what I'd like to do. I think I'd like to join the army. It was something forced upon the people who were involved.
Exactly, and that's exactly what happened to me. And I had a fairly good job. I was working as a young fellow with Western Mining Corporation, and we were on good wages. I had a very, very good job. But my parents went through the Second World War, and when they found out that I'd been called up to serve, and with the Vietnam conflict in full swing, it really, really affected my parents, and as you can imagine, after they'd gone through the Second World War in Europe.
Well, last year we spoke to a gentleman called Simon O'Brien. Simon's in his late 30s and chose to go into the army because his dad had been in the army, went to Duntroon, did officer training. You see all the TV ads at the moment, come and join the army or the navy and learn a trade, or learn about cyber security. It wasn't about that in 1960, whatever it was that you got the call up. I suspect it was come along and learn how to fight.
Exactly, and it was young blokes like me and thousands of others that were drawn off the street, and totally changed your way of life. You went from an innocent 20-year-old to, well, if you did go to Vietnam, as we did, you came back from a 20-year-old as a 35-year-old.
Over the space of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Hank, just on that, I was reminded again last night in a little doco I watched about the return from Vietnam as opposed to the Second and First World Wars, where the soldiers returned as heroes, and you fellows were returned basically as lepers in a lot of cases. You were ridiculed, harassed. Did you experience any of that yourself, and if so, what was it like, and do you feel a lot more comfortable now?
I do feel a lot more comfortable now, but it was really what affected a lot of us guys my personal experience is when I came home, I came home a little bit early because I sort of got knocked about a little bit, and we landed in Sydney, and we were asked to take our uniforms off so that the public wouldn't recognise that we were soldiers when we got off the bloody plane. And we got off the plane at 9:30 at night in the rain, and out on the runway, and had to walk across to the hangars.
Goodness gracious! And basically hidden away. So your officers, your superior officers, knew that you were going to be harassed before landing. And do you think they did enough to protect you?
I don't think they did, because they let us loose. They let us loose in Sydney. Oh. You can imagine what our feelings were when we were told to take off our uniforms, and then there was just no way. We were from Melbourne, and we were told to find our own way home. Get out to the airport, catch the first available flight to Essendon in those days.
It's quite funny when we go back to the Gallipoli story, and history shows that the soldiers were treated very poorly by their superiors, and some of the decision making left a lot to be desired. That carried on through the Second World War, and again, nothing learnt. You were forced to go and do something, probably against your will in most cases, and yet treated so poorly by those that were managing you. Is that left you with some deep scarring?
That's probably one of the things that hurt the most. Actually, there's a lot of thoughts you don't talk about, Robert. But the thing that how the public received us, and I must stress, it was the ignorant public, general public. It was the ignorant public that did what they did to our boys when we came home.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a couple of significant memorials that you're involved in, one of which is why you're in Canberra, so we'll come to that in a minute. 70 or 80 k's north of Melbourne, so the same distance out of Melbourne as Geelong is, if you go in the northerly direction towards Sydney. Johnny Chester got a lift to Seymour with a sympathetic friend, as I recall.
He did, yes.
You go to Seymour, and you've been very active in getting the Vietnam Memorial Walk, I think it's called. Is that what it's called?
That's exactly what it's called, yeah.
So I have been listening. That's a good start. Tell us about the memorial, what people can expect to see if they come and see it, and the journey to get that up and running.
The journey to get that up and running started back in probably 2005, and the then mayor of Mitchell Shire, Councillor Bill Melbourne, approached me in the main street and said he'd come back from a holiday in Vietnam, not being a serving member of any description. He came back and he said to me, "What can we do for Vietnam veterans in Seymour, being so close to Puckapunyal?" And I said, "Well, what would you like to do?" And he said, "What about we put all their names in pavers on the footpath?" And I said, "No way." And he said, "Why is that?" And I said, "We've been walked on enough."
Yeah.
And he said to me then, he said, "Well, we've got some land in the middle of High Street in Seymour. Let's do something there." And what you see there now developed from that. I took Bill to the RSL. We set up a subcommittee, and that subcommittee achieved what you see at the Vietnam Commemorative Walk right now in Seymour, and it's a national icon. It's an absolute... I've spoken to people that have been to America, and they said there's nothing better in America than what we have there at Seymour in recognition of the Vietnam veteran. And not only veterans, everyone and anyone, including the tracker dogs that served in Vietnam's name, is on that commemorative walk.
So when you come into Geelong from the north, as I mentioned to you, you come over the railway bridge and there's that small Vietnam Veterans Memorial at Osborne Park, which most people would have driven past but never stopped to have a look at it. This sounds like it's significantly more effort has gone into it, and that's not having a crack at the people locally, but there's obviously been money spent to commemorate the service of people who went to Vietnam and animals that went to Vietnam as well.
My word, and it's done in a meandering wall with what we call digiglass, and both sides of that wall, they're about 5 foot high, and photos that the diggers took in Vietnam have been superimposed with the names on the digiglass, and all 62,000 names are on that wall. Everyone, including the entertainers that served in Vietnam or went to Vietnam in that conflict, is on that wall. No matter where you live in Australia, if you call into Seymour and you went to Vietnam, your name will be on that wall.
Yeah, it's very important. And just on that theme, Hank, the word commemorate, some people call celebrate, other times it's just remember. For you, what do you do around Anzac Day and Remembrance Day? What are the feelings that hit you most?
Well, the one that gets to me the most is the commemoration. And it's not a celebration, it's a commemoration. And let's not confuse those two words, because it's definitely not a celebration. It's a commemoration of the service that everyone involved in protecting this country, whether it be overseas or anywhere else for that matter. It's what we commemorate.
And Hank, on that theme too, you talked about your pretty ordinary return to Sydney from Vietnam, but over the years, has your connection to Australian service maybe opened doors or given you opportunities once you got away from the ignorant public view and more respectful view of what you'd done?
I certainly have, and I'm very heavily involved with the National Service Association, the Victorian branch of the National Service Association. And what we do at Puckapunyal, where all the recruits that serve those national service in Victoria, Western Australia, and areas like that, we're trained, which a base called 2RTB. I'm now very, very involved and have been over the last 15 to 16 years with a commemoration service that we have mid-March at Puckapunyal every year, and the military personnel cannot be more helpful towards that service and help us out with the facilities and the service at Puckapunyal. I have a fantastic relationship with the military now.
Yeah, it's really, really good. The world that it is today, Neil sort of touched on the fact that we do live in, and probably all through my life there's been something going on somewhere, but I don't think it's ever been more concerning for me as it is right now about conflict around the place. When you were a youngster in the mid-60s and the Vietnam thing started and we had the relationship with America, were you sort of fearful about what was going on, or were you too young and blasé to understand what was happening?
I think blasé is a good word, because we were just involved in our fantastic life in the 60s, by the way. Innocence and things like that was rife in the 60s, and we never had the television or the coverage and opinions of people in the 60s. And until I got that letter in the mail, I really didn't know much about what was going on, Robert.
Yeah, so are you watching now with concern, or do you think things are going to be okay?
I think I am watching with concern, and the thing that I say to myself all the time is, when is man ever going to learn?
Yeah.
It's just so sad that the world we live in is so fantastic, but man will not learn how to get on with fellow man. And at the moment, the concerns are there. Of course they are, especially the way that things are developing throughout the world and with some of the leaders.
Now, you have, in fact, headed up Highway 31 and turned right when you got just past Yass, I suspect, and up to Canberra. What's going on in Canberra? I mean, obviously a big commemoration of Anzac Day, but specifically you were invited, as I understand it.
Yes, we were. The 5 of us were invited as representatives of our walk, and we got a guided tour through the War Memorial, a special guided tour through the War Memorial by a very, very knowledgeable man about the whole system here in Canberra, Henry, and Henry just a fantastic guide. And then the following day, we went to the dawn service, which I've already described as just a sea of people, and also later that day we were privileged to be in the march for the mid-morning service, and there was 5 of us, and we were just a group of 5 with a young lass, Zoe, she's in the Air Force area of the training with the Air Force, and Zoe carried a little plaque with the number 17 on it, and we were 5 of us representing the number 17, 5 from Seymour, and we had our names read out as we approached the War Memorial in the march. And like that we said this morning, it wasn't all about the us being it was just so wonderful to be recognised, and it's such a great feeling when you're marching all the way up Anzac Parade, and both sides of the road, Anzac Parade, 5 and 6 people deep clapping as you walk past. And what a great change that is to what happened in Sydney when we came home.
50-odd years in the making, but you finally got there.
Yeah, there's been a lot of... I think Canberra's a wonderful city, actually. I think what they've done in Canberra for services, especially if you haven't been to Canberra, you call in and you go up Anzac Parade, and the money and the things that have been spent on memorial services is just absolutely fantastic. It's a great city.
Well, before we let you go and enjoy the cafe scene up there as well, which I'm assuming you're going to do before heading back. When are you heading back to Seymour?
I'm heading back today, actually.
Oh, well, drive safely. But we just need to call out a couple of things. First of all, you seem to know your way around a microphone. Have you done a bit of radio in your time, have you?
I do. I volunteer with a great little radio station, 103.9 Seymour FM. And we've got a range. We pump out about 500 watt, and we've got a fairly good range. And we take in places like Avenel, Nagambie, Broadford, Seymour, of course, Pylon. And we get out there, and we also, I must give 103.9 a sports plug, because today and every day, every Saturday that Seymour play, we have two of the best commentators, football commentators in country voluntary and community radio, and Greg Sharp and Jeff Ward. And tune into 103.9. You can stream us, seymourfm.com.au, and listen to one of the best country football commentaries in Australia, actually.
Now, our blokes who are doing the GDFL down here, they've just hung up. They've just decided, right, that's it, we're out of here, because we also do something similar. Please tell me that they're known as Sharpie and Wardy, surely.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, no, I'd be disappointed if they weren't.
A lot of the times too, Robert, we call the game in conjunction with 1FM in Shepparton, with the boys up there, and we have a great relationship with them. And I call them simulcast when we work.
Oh, that's a very technical word. And if people want to hear your program, Hank, when can they tune in?
Well, my program, I'm on air from 10 till 11 every Tuesday morning, and I talk to frontline services and the police, the Ambos, the SES, and also the great clubs of Seymour, with the Rotary Club and the Lions Club. Every month I speak to all those people on my, I call it Hank's Hour. And then from on a Monday between 4 and 6, I do a 4 till 6 drive program, which sometimes I talk to school, college people, and anyone else that wants to have a chat.
And play a bit of quality music.
60s, 70s and 80s.
I
Gee,
love it.
if only we played something very similar on this program. Hank, we acknowledge the amazing sacrifice that you and your fellow service people have provided to this country over the journey, and it was important that on such an important weekend that we acknowledge that. And thank you for your service, folks. If you get a chance and you're up in that part of the world, please, in fact, don't if you get a chance, get in your car and drive to Seymour and go and have a look at the commemorative walk. It's a really important part of our history, and you never know your luck. If he's not on the radio, Hank might be hanging around. He might come and say good day.
Always, and I'll say that as all the time, Robert. If you come to our great town, give me a call, and I'll show you around, because there's a lot more to see. Seymour's got a great history as far as the military and the railways go, and it's a great. It's got a lot of history.
And if you want to know a bit more about that, another shameless plug for the Regional 250. Go to your favourite podcast store, and Podversations is a business subscriber to this, so we're allowed to say Podversations. The Regional 250 featuring Hank. It will be available from 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, Monday morning, in all your favourite podcast stores. Hank Kreemers, thanks for your service. Thanks for your time this morning.
And thank you for the opportunity, Robert, and good luck for the rest of your career, mate.
Best wishes, Hank. You're a good human, I reckon.
I'll do my best.
Don't we all? Cheers, mate. All the best.